Do you think it's all right for a school to discriminate based on someone's sexual orientation or gender identity?
We have laws that cover discriminatory efforts, and our Office for Civil Rights has continued to be very diligent in investigating any allegation of discrimination and will continue to do so.
So is that a yes or is that a no? I'm trying to get a yes or no, I guess, on that.
We follow the law as this.
So personally, you don't have an opinion on it?
Defined, and
because you are giving money, so it leads me to the next question. You are giving money to some charter schools that do discriminate, and that report, I'd like to follow up from our chairwoman's question, where $1 billion has been wasted with 1,000 schools going to charter schools. 1 out of every 4 have failed, and I know in your testimony you thought we should have more charter schools, but when you have a 25% failure rate, that'd be like saying if one of your car tires keeps going flat, rather than replacing it, you're going to add more tires to a car. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but my question would be, what are you doing specifically to get that $1 billion back for taxpayers? And you have in this budget a $60 million increase, a 14% increase for this program when we have 1 out of every 4 failing. How can you address those two aspects of that?
Well, let me just refer again to the fact that the report covered information from a longer period.
Sure, but my question, if I can, just because I want to get a couple more subject areas in, please, Madam Secretary.
I will go to the fact again that we need more charter schools, not fewer of them.
Okay, so what are we doing to get money back for taxpayers? Let's try that one first.
We need traditional public schools
to be held to the same. I'm sorry, excuse me, Madam Secretary, just because I'm trying to save time. So what are we doing to get the money back for taxpayers, the $1 billion that got wasted?
I'm not sure that that's the ultimate conclusion, but we'll certainly look into.
Are we doing anything to get the money back?
We'll certainly look into that. And
so we're not doing anything to get the money back.
Of that report.
This is interesting how we ask questions. I feel like I'm speaking a different language. All right, so let me go to another area, and I want to follow up on the thing Ms. Lee mentioned about the cuts to Special Olympics. Do you know how many kids are going to be affected by that cut, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Pocan, let me just say again, we had to make some difficult decisions with this budget.
Again, this is a question on how many kids, not about the budget.
I don't know the number of kids.
It's 272,000 kids. That's all. I'll answer it for you. That's okay. No problem. It's 272,000 kids that are affected.
Is an awesome organization, one that is well supported by the philanthropic sector as well.
Sure. I'll tell you, reclaiming my time if I could, Madam Secretary, because there's a couple more parts to this. So also, we have cuts that go in the special education grants to states from $3 million to $2.2 million, a 26% cut. And then also in this budget, you have a $7.5 million cut to the National Technical Institute for the Blind, a $13 million cut for Gallaudet University, a $5 million cut for federal program for print books for blind students. And you recently had a federal judge rule against us on some areas around special education. I have 2 nephews with autism. What is it that we have a problem with children who are in special education? Why are we cutting all of these programs over and over within this budget?
Well, sir, we have continued to retain the funding levels for IDEA and held that level. So in the context
I don't think I brought up IDEA. I believe I brought up Special Olympics, special education grants to states, the National Technical Institute for the Blind, Gallaudet University, federal program for printing books. So if you could address those, that's the question. I would really appreciate it.
I will address the broader question around.
Or if you could actually address the question I asked. That's even a better way to answer a question.
Supporting students with special needs, we have continued to hold that funding level, that funding at a level amount, and in the context of a budget proposal that is a 10% reduction.
All right, I'll reclaim my time. I'll reclaim my time. You're not going to answer the question. Let me try one last one. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll do better than charter schools if I get this one covered by you. You've got a cut to the department that's a 12% agency cut, but you have a 15.6% increase in your executive salary appropriation. How can you justify that?
So the department funding includes a building modernization piece.
Yeah, I didn't ask about buildings.
Well, it's all part of that. It's all part of that budget.
So you're okay with a 12% agency cut in light of a 15.6% increase in executive salary, and by the way, I know it doesn't come out of this budget, but $7 million security expense in the last year.
So we are also funding the Next Gen initiative through federal student aid, which requires a lot of investment now to save in the longer term. Same thing for the building modernization piece. We are in the process of shrinking down the footprint here from 3 buildings to 2, and all of that, the expenditures come up front so that the savings can be realized in the longer term.
Yeah, Madam Chairwoman, I'm sorry I wasn't more clear in my questions. Thank you.
In essentially the same breath, we have Trump's Education Secretary Betsy DeVos defending her department's decision to continue funding charter schools, which have a failure rate of 25%, while cutting $7 billion from educational programs, including all $18 million for the Special Olympics. According to a report on charter schools by the Network for Public Education, more than 1,000 grants were issued to charter schools that either never opened or quickly closed because of mismanagement, poor performance, lack of enrollment, or fraud. Some discriminate illegally against students in their admissions process, and the Education Department's approval process for grants doesn't include any verification for the information presented by applicants. These schools have no educational oversight, no accountability, and they're rife with fraud. And as Representative Pocan mentioned, they've been a drain on our tax dollars to the tune of $1 billion, none of which seems to be of much concern to Betsy DeVos. In fact, she actually says, with a straight face, that we need traditional public schools to be held to the same accountability standard.
We need traditional public schools
Okay, let's
to
go.
be held to the same
I'm sorry, excuse me, Madam
standards.
Secretary.
Yes, I beg our local public school superintendents across the country, please make sure that 25% of your schools are shuttered, that you grossly mismanage funds, and that you do so with no accountability whatsoever. And almost on cue for the comically villainous updates that we've come to expect from the Education Secretary, the 10 to 12% cuts to special ed programs are offset by what else? A 15.6% increase in executive salaries. How many top-level executives that'll serve, I'm not sure, but I can just about promise you that it won't come close to the 272,000 kids who would be impacted by cuts to the Special Olympics. Now, she mentions that the Special Olympics is not a federal program and that it's been subsidized by private donations, but private donations are necessary because protections for the vulnerable are constantly under attack. It's like how insurance companies are suggesting that people start GoFundMes to raise enough money to pay for medical procedures, and sometimes it works, but the point is that taking such a step is the result of a systemic failure. While it's honorable that they do, we shouldn't need individuals to step up because our government was too inept to use our tax dollars to deliver assistance to those who need it, to the most vulnerable in this country. And here's the thing, if this administration was serious about reducing the deficit, that would be one thing, but they're not. Everything they've done thus far has been to benefit the ultra-rich. The $1.5 trillion tax cut overwhelmingly left companies flush with cash that went right to stock buybacks and into the pockets of top executives, and left the ultra-rich in this country paying less in taxes, leaving federal coffers starved for revenue. In other words, we can afford to give CEOs a $1.5 trillion tax cut, but we can't afford $18 million to fund the Special Olympics? When put up against what this administration has already proven their priorities to be, their argument of frugality holds no water. Clearly, this is just the latest example of this administration striking at the heart of this nation's most vulnerable. From dreamers to trans military members to Special Olympics participants, the White House has made attacking those with the least protections, the least support, and the least power a cornerstone of their agenda. What's worse is that since Congress, not the president, will ultimately pass a budget, and this proposed budget will undoubtedly fail, it served no purpose, no practical purpose, other than to put their lack of compassion on full display, to show the American people, as if there was any doubt, exactly who they are.